Hello, this is One Man Left, and tomorrow we have the 19 new Ascendancy League, and Manaforged Arrows is looking pretty good. So I'm going to do a leveling video, as well as talk about some updates I've made to the build so far. But to start with leveling, I just want to preface this that I usually don't like doing leveling videos. So I'm going to work under the assumption that you are looking for a leveling guide. So if someone comes into the comments and says, actually, you need to take Aspect of the Lynx after level 14 because Aspect of the Eagle is better during the Brutus, shut the fuck up. If you already know, why are you here? Just level yourself then. Alright? So this is for the people that want a leveling guide. So I'll start here. The good news is Ranger has a really good leveling start. Alright? You got a lot of move speed. You maybe have a couple weak periods, but a lot of this at the start is just going to look basically like most Ranger leveling. It'll maybe branch out a little bit as you go on, but, you know, like, a lot of the early levels are pretty scienced out already. You know, like, Havoc's got some good, like, early leveling videos, but just, I'll go through the pathing I'm going to take. Once again, not reinventing the wheel here, but also, I'll include right now, at the end of the video, I'm going to have some extra POBs, some improvements I've made to the previous POBs, and maybe like a quiver crafting tip. If you want to skip that, I'll timestamp it, skip the leveling, whatever, if that's all you care about. But yeah, I've improved some of the POBs to take less jewels for the same stats, and I made a 3 Divine POB, because people were complaining that there was nothing in between 8 Chaos and 20 Div. And the 3 Divine POB, by the way, is looking pretty nice. The 3 Div POB is looking juicy. I got that thing min-maxed. Alright. Anyways. Leveling. So, the early points are going to be pretty straightforward. You're going to come along the top here through Ballistics. And you're going to go Primal Spirit right away. For those who don't know why Primal Spirit, you might think, oh yeah, we're a mana build, duh, Primal Spirit. No, the reason you always take Primal Spirit is because you need the int for Frostblink. Because you'll get the Frostblink gem, but as a ranger you won't have enough int in order to use it, and you need that. So unless you get like a Lapis Amulet and get lucky, you need the int from Primal Spirit. But this will just carry your mana situation because you're a class that does a lot of hits. So for the remainder of the campaign, if you end up using a mana flask every like 10 to 20 seconds, you'll just have all your mana solved. But then there's a couple spots here where you could go either way. I probably go Aspect of the Eagle next. You would think go to Aspect of the Lynx, but I'm actually going to hold off on this until way later because there's some timing that comes up where you kind of want to save these 3 points for over here later. But you'll see why in a second. So let me actually reset this whole thing and just show you here. So, whoops. Pay attention to the levels a little bit. So you're level 9 right now. Now you can use Frostblink. Boom. I'd probably do Aspect of the Eagle, then Finesse, and you kind of want to get Quick Step right away. Quick Step's so good. You're just getting move speed now. Pretty straightforward. This next bit is a little awkward. Maybe it makes... It's going to be slightly painful right now, okay? You could wait on this till you get a little more Lightning Convert with Lightning Arrow. But I just go for Precise Technique here. This feels bad. I know, but it's like 4 points for 40% more damage, and you'll have outpaced accuracy even if just like you pick up precision. Even without precision, I had way more accuracy the whole campaign, so it's pretty free. But I'm gonna pick up a little bit of life here. I mean, obviously for like speed purposes, you don't want many life points, but especially if you have a no life chest, that's really good. From here though, you have a couple options. It's probably worth it to go for Graceful Assault, actually, instead of before this. I left that out. Because Graceful Assault is onslaught on kill with, like, 60% or 30% onslaught effect, so it's 26% attack and move speed. You could also go straight for Farsight and go for the Blink Arrow. Then I'm going to probably take Herbalism Life, go up. And as far as skills up until this point, I start with Galvanic Arrow. From level, whatever, 2 to level 12. At level 12, you get Rain of Arrows. Rain of Arrows is very good. It doesn't really depend on number of projectiles. An early game ranger, you don't have all the extra projectiles yet that make a lot of the other bow skills good. So just having Rain of Arrows is a really nice leveling skill. The objective here is you're going to use Rain of Arrows from level 12 till level 38. It's pretty comfy during that time period. But with the Whisperer, after your first Labyrinth, you're going to get Awakened Fork. So let's call it around level 35, you get Awakened Fork. The gem progression through the campaign is level 38 is required for return projectiles, and Awakened Fork plus return proj is a pretty nice combo. So the objective here is to try to get the extra projectiles around level 38 and then swap from Rain of Arrows to Lightning Arrow, which will just immediately feel good. So from here, I'm going to try to kind of rush Master Fletcher and Multi-Shot. Now you'll notice, depending on what masteries you take, this is right around level 38. So yeah, depending on mastery, around this time you're going to get Awakened Fork from Ascending. You're going to have 3 projectiles now with Lightning Arrow, and you're going to get Return Proj at 38. So this is the time where everything kind of just converges at the same time, and then you switch to Lightning Arrow. Pretty much right away, you can start using a Manaforged Arrow Link. It's not going to be what the build turns into, but you start off with Burning Arrow. Storm Rain, as soon as you can get it, will start covering your single target. Concentrated Effect is a really good link whenever you can get that. I think that takes like 30 or 38, though. So there's a couple you can use in between. Like, you can start off with LMP or GMP when you don't have any proj, because when you're like level 20 and you only have 1 proj, Storm Rain's weak. But just having LMP is just like a 2.5 times damage gem, or GMP is even better. So you pretty much use that until you get to the extra projectiles from Multi-Shot and Master Fletcher. Then you can drop the GMP or LMP out of Storm Rain and just go for like Conk Effect instead. It kind of makes a little more sense. I like to put Mirage Archer in my Storm Rain as opposed to my Lightning Arrow, because it does do a lot of damage. It's just the Manaforged Arrow only triggers every few seconds, but the Archer attack speed is not penalized by that slow trigger speed. It just fires at full rate. So I actually like to do Storm Rain plus Mirage Archer in the Manaforged trigger. From there, when you get the Awakened Fork Ascendancy, the extra fork projectile becomes really good. I go for increased fork angle, because I think it just covers the clear speed better, especially when you get 3 arrows. The 50% increased angle of 3 arrows is just gonna, with like the double fork, is gonna be like full off screen, full screen. By this point, your clear should be getting pretty nutty. But basically, all the pathing now is going to be kind of trying to fill out this area a little bit more and prepare for roughly when you get the mana per dex around level 55. So that'll be about when you want to be down here to pick up utmost swiftness. But there's going to be a little bit of an awkward spec point here. Fleetfoot is pretty good, especially because you can get the mastery then for 10% move speed if you haven't hit recently. So like this combination's 15 move speed. That's really good for campaign. There's a couple different ways you can get the proj mastery. You can take long shot, but if you're up here for the fork, that's probably the better proj mastery to take. Around this time, you probably don't have much dex, but right around Cruel Lab, the combination of this mastery plus taking utmost swiftness and like maybe the just specifically dex per mastery early on is going to be better than 5% attributes. Late game, obviously 5% attributes is better because you have so much flat. But when you don't have much flat, this is like, more dex. But this is going to roughly make sense around the part when you get to Infinite Pursuit, which once again should be like 55. But there's a couple masteries you can take in the meantime. You can go down here. Like I said, the tree's going to get really ugly a second. So around when you make this swap, I recommend looping down around bottom and then dropping these points because they're hideous. They're ugly. Don't look at them. But if you do that, this area looks a little ugly, but this is about the best way to path it, I think. There's a couple other nodes you can get. The Ellie node and one with nature, these kind of make the most sense once you can get like full lightning convert. So about this time, you could be running Fizz to Lightning with your Lightning Arrow. It kind of depends what your bow looks like. If you have a pure Fizz bow, then Fizz to Lightning makes sense, and then you can start to kind of go like full Ellie. And about then, I kind of like to pick up the invert, and potentially this 2-pointer for just covering my res and getting a little bit more, generic Ellie damage there. But you kind of don't want to be half Lightning, half Fizz when you do that. You kind of want to be like mostly Lightning. So you can Fizz to Lightning, but you can also, if you get a good Jewel, take a 2-point socket, but you probably won't get a good Jewel in the campaign. The Frenzy's okay, because you're going to be picking up Blood Rage. I'm just really lazy about, like, turning on Blood Rage, but after you are kind of low level and you get your first Manaforged link, when you start to get sockets available, you can add your second Manaforged link. And I like Rain of Arrows. I know there's going to be, like, some, like, 2-hour speedrunners that are going to just puke when they see this. But let me tell you, life gain on hit in your secondary Manaforge with Rain of Arrows pretty much makes you immortal, so it just feels comfy. Like, this is like 500 recovery per second. Like, I can just like AFK on top of rares, just like triggering life on hit Rain of Arrows. It's really, really busted. So I went for this. Now, you could do Conk Effect if you get a 4th link, but if you don't, if you're like me and you hate turning on Blood Rage, you can just put Frenzy in this second Manaforge link to just like perma-generate you Frenzy charges. Which, to be fair, this works on bosses, and Blood Rage doesn't. So it might be more worth it to do that and just say, we don't need the damage. We're just going to use the life on hit Rain of Arrows as a 3-link, and then if we get a 4th, we'll add Frenzy. But there will come a point where you're going to have to like make an awkward jump here. You could just buy time and get Aspect of the Links right now. I think that makes sense. And then finally you'll get to a point where you've kind of like got all your masteries, and you just have to like make the big commit. I don't hate this node, by the way, the 0.5 or the 5 attack speed per close enemy. It's like worst case 5 attack speed, but that's kind of a floater point. But eventually you're gonna have to come up here and make this big jump. Waste some points, but you might at this point like do a big respec and try to get all the way to like Arcing Blows. I actually really like Arcing Blows. It's a lot of generic damage and pen, and then I can get the Lightning Mastery for 40 Fizz convert to Lightning, which then lets me drop Fizz to Lightning if I have a pure Fizz bow, and just pick up another support gem. So it actually represents pretty big damage gain. Once again, you can get a 2-point socket here, but you had another one down there. About this time, you're actually doing enough damage now. Like, when you're low level, like, Leech sucks. So, like, everyone knows this in PoE 1. You just don't hit hard enough to Leech. But, like, around this point, where you're, like, level 60, you're starting to hit hard enough now that I kind of like to take the, like, gain on hit for, like, mana and life, which you're just puking out hits now. So it's really going to solve your mana. But about this point, I kind of like to go Instant Leech, because this is going to just perma cap you on everything. You're finally hitting hard enough now to sustain this. And once again, you can take a 2-point socket here. You could take the Frenzy. Same down here. You can take the 2-point socket. You can take the Frenzy. This is about getting to the full tree here. I'm missing something. I forgot what. Maybe I didn't retake Fleetfoot. Not Fleetfoot. Oh, yeah. Aspect of the Links. Retake. And then it's just like masteries. Like, do you have a life mod on your chest or not? If you don't, take this, etc. So this is, I'll link this tree. But this is the way I go through the campaign. I've got, like, some of the core skills here. Auras, you can go, Herald of Thunder is really good. It's probably the most popular one. But, like, defensively, Arctic Armor and Flesh of Stone are really strong. But, like, Herald of Thunder is probably one of the best clear ones. But you kind of already get really cracked clear with, like, Awakened Fork and Lightning Arrow. You can run Haste just for move speed. I don't hate that option. I feel like there's a lot of stats that I gain from Auras that I just don't need more of. So maybe just getting more move speed with Haste doesn't suck. But yeah, then I just have, like, Blood Rage, Frostblink, whatever. Sniper's Mark on hit, Blink Arrow, Faster Attacks, whatever. If you get the Mastery, this pretty much has no cooldown. You can just spam it. You just want a little bit of attack speed to make this feel good. Like I said, I'll save this. I have, make sure I actually have it right, because I don't know if I lost 1 point somewhere. But this POB, I don't have items on, because, like, whatever. It's just whatever items you get leveling. You're going to have garbage like this. For my leveling run, at level 50-something, I put on a Replica and Fractum. Just because this bow gives you Awakened Fork. So I put this on to simulate, like, my Ascendancy for Whisperer testing. But funny enough, like, I found at least 2 bows that were over 5. I found a 500 DPS Ellie bow in Act 7 that was like 28% more damage than this. So I've been using a worse bow just to like simulate the Awakened Fork, but the leveling process is pretty smooth. A lot of move speed, not super tanky, really good clear speed. So if you don't mind the 6 portal life, it's really fast. But for the sake of leveling and testing, I was like level 66 in Act 7 or something crazy like that. Like I was just killing everything to test. So I ended up doing like a 9-hour campaign probably. I've been AFK in Hideout for a little bit, probably like 10 hours played. But so I did not do a fast campaign, but I just treated it like a map I was full clearing just to test out all the like gem combos and stuff. But it was not a bad leveling experience. I think the only thing I'd much rather like is having like a little tankiness or like leap slam. But I mean the run speed's insane. And then comes the spot where if you've skipped ahead in the video, hi, welcome back. You probably know how to level a ranger and don't care about anything I just said. Welcome. From here, you're in white maps now, and you want to get to the point where you get to like that indigon POB where you're doing like a billion DPS, right? Well, there's 2 ways to do that, and I'll just go over them. The first way is you do it my way, and you just go directly through like the bow leveling route. Now, I made a 3 div POB. It's some pretty garbage stuff. Like, I really like downtune things. But, like, I don't know. I have a 200 Widow Hail. I, like, just dropped 1 to 2 mods on all the pieces of gear. And, like, it's still pretty juiced. I just have, like, some random garbage. Like, I don't know. I mean, like, these are, like... A lot of these are just, like, almost borderline alt spammable and regalable. But if anything that is, like, a little on the good side is the jewels. I dropped the rolls on, like, everything. I'm not using Shaper's Touch because, like, there's not going to be Shaper's Touch on the first day. But let me tell you, damage per dex for a lesser implicit and 1 rage on hit, which works on range attacks, is, like, a pretty good combo. But, I mean, I will probably be able to get gear equivalent to this, no problem, for, like, absolutely no currency. It's just, like, some Chaos Bin gear for the most part. Mind of the Council's a tier 3. I don't know how expensive they'll be. They might shoot up to like 30 Chaos, but it's a tier 3. I will say this, by the way. I did flashbang, by the way. Indigon had a group of people test run 110 Uber Elders, and we got 6.36% Indigon, lower than I thought. So I suspect the historical 1 in 8 rate, they doubled when they changed to tier 17s and Uber drops. So I'm guessing it's 1 in 16 now, because that would put it at 6.25. Obviously, 110 is a small sample size still, but people that are quoting 4% from the wiki are quoting one guy that did 1 sample of 50 Uber Elders and had 2 drop, which is a statistically terrible sample size. I'm not going to say 110 is a good sample size, but it's better. But I'm going to assume it's 1 in 16, so I guess just plan accordingly. We have some idols now, data mined, and there are idle mods for chance to drop Shaper Elder maps, so I'm going to probably go that route and just kind of farm my own indigon. But as far as the progression path, you can go this way, and I'll link this POB, and basically just like play the ever-evolving version of the build that like gets to that just before Indigon point, and then finally farms an Indigon. The other thing you can do is Lightning Strike. Let me pull up this video. So, Sandstorm did a video. I'll pull it up here. I'll link this video in the description. Where he made a pretty good Lightning Strike POB for, like, basically the idea was you would progress into Indigon. And just, you know, I'm just going to say flat out, just number-wise, this is probably just stronger than just, like, playing non-Indigon Manaforge. However, so if you're, like, you know, going, like, 4-stone racer mode, this is probably the play. I will just say there are 3 details there to keep in mind. The first is economy. So if every single person did Lightning Strike, this would be a bad idea. Because there are some different pieces of gear. You know, Weapons, you know, if you get a crit fracture, attack speed fracture, or mana fracture on a claw, you know, those are really good for this build. The jewels are a little different too. Like he's got like a lot of crit multi-jewels and he's going crit. Some of the gear is common, you know, Mind of the Council, some mana pieces, some common gear. But whatever similarities or differences there are in the gear, if 100% of people played Lightning Strike, then the prices would be really inflated and you'd be better off just like going generic Manaforged probably. If every single person does exactly what I do and goes generic Manaforge, then you would be crazy not to do Lightning Strike from like a competitive standpoint. I personally like the kind of zero to hero feeling of like watching the build grow in power. So I think even at a 50-50 split, it would be a little bit stronger to go Lightning Strike. But just because of the way I like to play the game, I'm going to probably just stick to the, you know, generic Manaforge. But I'll link this video. This is a good option. And just from an economy standpoint, it probably makes sense if a good number of people go this route and kind of split the gearing up a little bit to make things cheaper. The only other argument for going like the generic Manaforge, which I think to be fair is a decent argument, is that because you're going for some different pieces of gear, you might get in early on buying some of those pieces. Like you might get some jewels that go up in price. You might get like a decent Widow Hail early on that maybe goes up in price when like some of the Lightning Strike people switch. So some of the like the purest gear that is only used in the Manaforge setup, by you like naturally progressing through that, you might get in at a better price than having to like not respec, but like re-gear later when you get indigon and you're ready for the swap. But I would say if you just want to like farm aggressively and efficiently and just be like a full-blown 4-stone racer and just like blast until you just buy the indigon and the rest of the gear, it probably makes the most sense to just go Lightning Strike. But I am going to do the more like natural progression, and I'm going to try to rip off all the good jewels and stuff early so that when those Lightning Strike bros switch over, I've already bought them all, I'll get fucked. So that's the pros and cons. It's better to have people go both ways. Couple other things. I did a little playing around with some of the POBs. So on the higher budget ones, I was going along the right side. Which the advantage of going right side is you get more large clusters. And, you know, clusters are powerful. The better your jewels are, the more it makes sense. The more sockets you can add with good jewels, the better. But when I started to kind of downscale the budget on some of these and go lower and lower budget, like naturally the jewels get worse. Like large clusters are expensive. You're not going to have 4-stat jewels. You're going to have maybe 3-stat, maybe like 2.5-stat jewels. And the relative value of a socket starts to go down, which makes the argument to go right side lower and lower. So I've started doing on some of the cheaper POBs a path through the middle. And it turns out really good because like the other POB I have on like the cheap Manaforge, whatever it's called, it's 4 larges. Whereas if you look at the stats on this, like the you know 114 max hit and like 13.7, right? The 2 large setup is very okay. That's not the right stats. Something broke here. It was very similar damage. I'll have to fix it. I don't know what I broke, but I broke precise technique. Hang on. Okay, hang on. Why did I break precise technique? Okay, assuming I have my accuracy correct, it's only a little bit lower damage, but like the advantage here is you're only using 2 large clusters, and you have 4 less regular jewels. So if with a low amount of jewels, this style tree I think performs better on a low budget. And when you start to get into like really good larges, 4-stat jewels, maybe even adorned, maybe small clusters, then this setup starts to work good. But even on the fairly high budget, I still tried it out. So this is the giga budget on like right side pathing. But this is like middle pathing on the giga budget, and it's like actually possibly better still with only 2 larges. Which maybe is just because smalls take up more points, so I can't properly fit smalls with 4 larges. But, like, across various budget setups, the middle path potentially can be the same numbers for less budget. So I'm gonna link these alternative tree routes because they do perform better on low budget, and then it's like kind of it depends from there on out on your jewel situation. Also might depend on your timeless jewel. Once again, it's an economy game, so some people might buy a really good brutal restraint for decks over here, and then it makes sense to go right side. It's close. Like this is actually like close enough to be a tiebreaker scenario. Whereas some people might get a good brutal restraint over here. So just having people buying both, and then taking the path that you actually have a good brutal restraint for might make some sense. But it's very similar numbers. But yeah, this one takes less jewels. That's my plan. I'm going to be on tomorrow. A lot of you might level faster than I do. I'm not a speed demon on day one. I'm the tortoise, not the hare. But I'm going to ramp this build to infinity. And I'll see you guys